Mr. Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President.
Order.
I'm going to be calling your phone in a minute, Russell. Mr. Acting President, before I begin, I would like to move the amendments in the name of my colleague, the Honourable Heidi Girolamo, namely paragraph 1, leave out all the words after "since the" and insert disaggregation of the Electricity Trust of South Australia due to the massive state debt caused by the collapse of the State Bank under the former Bannon Labor government. And paragraph 2, leave out paragraph 2 and insert new paragraphs as follows. 2, notes that the former Bannon Labor government privatised the merged South Australian Oil and Gas Corporation and the South Australian Gas Company prior to its defeat in 1993 South Australian state election. 3, notes that the former Ran Wetherill Labor government privatised Forestry SA, SA Lotteries, the Motor Accident Commission and the Land Titles Office while in office. 4, acknowledges that the disorderly nature of the energy transition in South Australia, where baseload power has exited the system before a reliable equivalent has been in place, has led to the higher power prices and lower grid reliability. And 5, calls on the Malinowskis Labor government to develop an energy policy that will support working South Australian families during an energy crisis.
Before you go on, Mr. Hood, before you go on, it's been seconded. Please continue on.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President, and some wonderful amendments there from the Honourable Heidi Girolamo. Mr. Acting President, I do rise today to address the motion brought forward by the Honourable R.J. Martin regarding, R.B. Martin, regarding the privatisation of the Electricity Trust of South Australia, or ETSA. I do wonder as to why the honourable member has cast this little hook out at this time, but we do need to respond. We do need to respond. And as we mark the 25th anniversary of this event, it is important to reflect on the past, analyse the present and consider the future with a very clear and pragmatic approach. Now, this motion suggests that the privatisation of ETSA has not delivered favourable outcomes for the South Australian community. And while the honourable member's argument is passionate, as it always is from the honourable member, it is crucial to dissect the facts and separate the rhetoric from reality. Now, privatisation of ETSA was a decision born out of necessity and not ideology, as we have heard from the Honourable Justin Hanson. It is important to remember the context of the times. The early 90s, fantastic music, but there was something else that was going terribly wrong. It was when our state was grappling with one of, if not the largest economic disasters the state has ever seen, the collapse of the State Bank, a crisis precipitated by the previous Bannon Labor government. The State Bank collapse left South Australia with a massive debt, and the newly elected Brown Liberal government was tasked with cleaning up this financial mess. The privatisation of ETSA was part of a broader strategy to address this state's dire fiscal situation brought on by the Labor government. And it is important to note, Mr. Acting President, that the state retained freehold ownership of the generation, of the transmission and the distribution assets, while investors were brought in to operate them through long-term leasehold interests. This move was accompanied by a regime of industry regulation to protect the public interest and maintain safety standards. Now, Mr. Acting President, the Honourable Reggie Martin claims that privatisation has led to higher energy prices and a less reliable grid. However, this assertion, I don't believe, holds up to any scrutiny. According to the report by Ernst & Young, electricity prices have increased less in South Australia, a privatised state, compared with other non-privatised states like New South Wales and Queensland. The report has found that since privatisation, electricity bills have increased by 80% in South Australia, compared to 158% in New South Wales and 152% in Queensland. Now, this data suggests that the issue of rising electricity prices is a national one, influenced by a multitude of factors beyond privatisation. It's like blaming your umbrella for the rain. It's convenient, but not exactly accurate. Moreover, energy experts have been unable to identify a correlation between privatisation of electricity generators and higher prices. Tony Wood, for example, who is the Energy Director at the Grattan Institute, has stated, when people say electricity prices went up, they went up everywhere, regardless of ownership. Dr Lynn Chester, an energy researcher at the University of Sydney, also observed that overall the evidence does not support the claim of either higher or lower prices following privatisation. These perspectives highlight that blaming privatisation alone for rising energy costs oversimplifies a very complex issue. It's like saying the internet caused global warming. Sure, they happened at the same time, but correlation does not mean causation. Furthermore, Mr Acting President, it is worth noting that subsequent Labor governments have also engaged in significant privatisation efforts. And as much as the Honourable Justin Hanson would like to downplay them, they are serious. The forward sale of our forests, an asset worth $1.3 billion, sold for $600 million. $600 million. Half of what it was worth, less than half for what it was worth. If that is not a significant privatisation effort by this Labor government, I do not know what is. I do not know what is. I'll tell you what they do affect, Mr Hanson, and that's carbon sequestration, which is very important when we're talking about our environment and those types of things. We still have the trees, it's good, but we don't own them anymore, and the people that do repaid that debt within 5 years. Within 5 years. Other privatisation efforts, the SA lotteries, the Motor Accident Commission and the Land Titles Office were all privatised under the Wetherell administration. And it appears that privatisation is not the ideological boogeyman that it is sometimes portrayed to be, but rather a tool that has been used by both sides of politics to address financial challenges. Financial challenges, like having to build the Adelaide Oval, which is why our forests were sold, and the financial challenges that we will face with a $44 billion debt at the end of the forward estimates, in which we will pay $5 million of interest per day, or equal to 3 Adelaide Ovals per year. 3 Adelaide Ovals per year. But let us turn our attention to the current energy landscape. The transition to renewable energy is a necessary journey. Bet you didn't think I'd say that. But must be managed with care and foresight. The Malinowskis government's approach has been hasty. It has been poorly planned. Their rush towards 100% renewables without ensuring grid reliability has led to higher power prices and increased instability of our energy supply. The very thing that we are talking about here. This is not just my opinion, but it is reality reflected in the experiences of many South Australians who face some of the highest electricity bills in the country. During Premier Marshall's term, significant efforts have been made to reduce power costs, resulting in a decrease of $421 in the average residential power bill. How does that weigh up to Prime Minister Albanese's supposed drop of $275, which we have not seen? In fact, it is an increase of over $700 in power prices. Premier Marshall's decrease was achieved through a balanced energy policy that prioritised both affordability and sustainability. But in contrast, the current approach under the Malinowskis government has been less effective, leading to higher costs for consumers. Now, Mr Acting President, it is crucial to understand that this energy transition requires a balanced approach. South Australia has been a leader in adopting renewable energy, but the transition must be managed to ensure energy security and affordability. I worry that this current government's focus on renewables without sufficient planning for baseload generation has resulted in significant challenges. The closure of the Northern Power Station without adequate replacements or wholesale electricity prices soar in South Australia. This failure has ensured sufficient baseload generation that has led to major reliability issues, including the infamous statewide blackout. Now, the Liberal government identified rising energy prices as a major focus and implemented policies to drive those prices down. In June 2018, shortly after the former Liberal government was elected, the Essential Services Commission of South Australia, ETSA, identified that an average residential bill totalled around $2,244. By December 2021, this had reduced to $1,823, a total of $421 in savings. Moreover, in 2020, South Australia achieved the lowest time-weighted average of wholesale electricity prices in the national energy market, a significant achievement for our state. But since the Malinowskis Labor government came to power, South Australian families have already paid significantly more for electricity bills. In their first state budget, the Malinowskis government cut programs such as the Home Battery Scheme and the Grid-Scale Storage Scheme, programs that serve to drive down energy prices. This short-sighted approach is a clear warning sign that we could return to the days of high power prices and unreliable energy supply under Labor. In fact, it's not that we could, it's that we are. We also need to consider the broader context of energy markets and global economic shifts. The energy transition is a global phenomenon, and South Australia is not immune to its challenges. However, blaming the privatisation of ETSA, as the Honourable Mr Martin would like to do for all our energy woes, is simplistic and misleading. The real challenge lies in navigating the energy transition responsibly, ensuring affordability and maintaining grid reliability. Now, the privatisation of ETSA, though challenging, was a decision made to safeguard our state's financial health at that time in history. And looking forward, we have to hold the current government to account for their energy policies and ensure they deliver on the promises of affordability and reliability. South Australians deserve an energy policy that meets their needs without resorting to ideological extremes. To quote Winston Churchill, as the honourable member did in his initial speech, the era of procrastination, of half measures, of soothing and baffling expedients, and of delays is coming to a close. It is a place that we're entering that is a period of consequences. We must focus on pragmatic solutions to ensure a stable, affordable and sustainable energy future for all, and that, ultimately, means a nuclear future for South Australia. Not 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines linked to intermittent energy generators of solar and wind. These are nothing but half measures. These are nothing but soothing and baffling expedients that the people of South Australia are already bearing the consequence of.